All right, before we get started, let's give a big round of applause to all of the volunteers who have made this happen. Woo! Because without their long and payless work, I wouldn't be here, neither would you. You guys would be stuck at work. So, who here has been involved in a modernization, replacing legacy systems? Who here thought it went smoothly? All right, you're my people. So, today I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to specifically talk about why modernization projects fail and what you can do about it, or at least how to improve your odds of success. If you guys think I'm going to give you any silver bullets, leave now, because this is a technical term. This shit is hard. So, you're going to ask, why am I here? What are my qualifications? Fundamentally, I burned through $20 million of FedEx's money, leading a global modernization where I had to migrate, 3 or 4 systems, mash them together, integrate an operating company, and all of that other fun stuff. It was 3 years of excruciating pain. It nearly killed me. I wanted to get an MBA at the time, and I just was working like 7 to 7, and I realized I was kind of upset about it, but I realized I got a $20 million education, so in the end, I came out ahead. So that's my why I'm qualified to talk about this stuff. Now let's talk about what you came here for. So let me ask, can anybody tell me what's going to happen? Will Charlie Brown successfully kick the football? Anybody think? No, right? We know exactly what's going to happen. Now, what's going to happen here? Do we think that this project will be done in 9 months? Right?
For a given value of done.
Yeah, but why is it, right? We know that Charlie Brown's never going to kick the football, and yet we keep coming to these projects, and it's like, oh, we're going to be 9 months, 12 months, 36, whatever. It's like, this is crazy. And so what typically happens, right, comes in, we have no idea what's actually required, but we're going to call it green. It's all green, right? It's the watermelon. And then we peel back and we see, oh my God, this is way bigger than I thought. We still report it all green because that's what we're going to do. And what happened here? Oh. And then once we discover that, we implement very advanced development techniques. Who's heard of DDD? Right? Deadline-driven development, where you take all sorts of shortcuts. We skip the architecture work. We throw out those features. We hard code stuff. But no matter how hard we work, the project, it stays green until we get to almost the very end, and then it switches to yellow and red. Oh, wait, I forgot. Then we have the black hole of deadline-driven development, right? That's the inevitable outcome where honesty, value, quality, usability, joy goes to die. Maintainability, that should be in there, right? And then we have the exploding watermelon, right? At the very end, just before the project's supposed to be done, it turns to yellow and red and blows shrapnel all over everybody. So, anybody have that experience? Nobody's ever seen this. But then the most important part of any project, the blame storming, where we all argue about whose fault it was. And fundamentally, the question is why? And I think it's the same reason why marriages and relationships fail, is expectations don't meet reality, right? If you think your relationship is gonna be rainbows and unicorn farts, chances of that relationship surviving are low. And this is the problem with so many IT projects and modernization. Our expectations are way out of line with reality. So, right, we think it's gonna be easy. The reality is it's gonna be 2 to 3 to 5x harder than we expected. Plans equal reality when they're mirages. We ignore the laggards and edge cases. But at the end of the day, your laggards are your largest customers, and your edge cases drive all of your complexity and risk. And the MVP model works, right? We have the consultants come in, MVP, MVP. It's like Oprah, you got an MVP, this is an MVP. And that's just the exact opposite of what you're dealing with. And that you can track progress based on quantity of code, tasks completed. I see someone nodding their head, when in reality, it's the wrong metrics. So what should you do? Embrace uncertainty. Focus on risk reduction. Understand augmentation versus replacement. Adopt the minimum viable replacement. And use the watermelon detector. So let's dive into uncertainty and risk reduction. So there's a lot of things that drive risk, but there are three that I'm going to dive into here. Uncertainty, complexity, and impact. So now let's talk about uncertainty. This is what you know. This is what you don't know. So stop planning based on the 80% you don't know. Plan based on the 20% you do know, right? Which you can't do that. How do you come up with a plan when you don't know 80% of it? But yet we still do that. So that's the first thing. Understand is you don't know 80%, right? You're dealing with enterprise icebergs. Part of that's driven, like you're dealing with 10, 20, 30-year-old systems, right? The knowledge has left the building. People have moved on. They've retired. They ate too much bacon, right? And then we're dealing with all sorts of different users, and they have different perspectives of what is value. So somebody may think this is great, and somebody else says this sucks because what works for a large customer will not work for a small, and vice versa. And to that extent, so let me ask you, who here has a perfect track record of delivering presents that cause joy for their significant other? Or, who'd like their present, because presents really supposed to improve that relationship. Do all of your presents improve the relationship? Or, no, I see heads nodding. Right? These are the people we live with, we love, and yet we can't get it right for them. So why should we be able to design products with any probability of delivering higher results than for the people we love and know, right? It's virtually impossible. So let's just be realistic, right? It's hard. We're not going to be perfect in this. And part of that is we have the paperclip problem. Anybody heard of the paperclip problem? Probably not, because I made it up. So, think about a paperclip, right? It's designed for putting two pieces of paper together, but we use it all sorts of different ways. So, for you guys who are old enough to, get the CD-ROM out of the CD-ROM machine, but right, your users use your systems in all sorts of ways that you have no idea. They're very creative. They want to solve their problems. It doesn't matter how you think you designed your system. So like at FedEx, the pricing people were responsible for leading this large portfolio modernization. They thought people use their system just for pricing. And then they presented to the sales force and they said, where's the reporting capability? Oh, well, you can't use it for that. And literally, you had 500 salespeople almost rush the stage and burn them alive because that was critical. And they're like, well, you can't use it. It's a pricing system. And it's like, this is the way we've been using it. What do you mean? So, right, people use your system in all sorts of ways that you're never going to imagine. So when you combine that uncertainty with complexity, right, that's going to be a key driver of risk. And so we're going to do a math competition. So we've got this nice Gantt chart here, right? We've got 20 tasks, and we're 90% confident that we get each task done on time with quality, etc. By the time we get to task number 20, what's the overall probability that we'll get that done on time with quality? 5%, 1%, 2%. Anybody think 90%? Anybody think we should just average this out? Well, that's what, in my company, we were getting beat up because we were given you were 80% confident, and there was 10 teams. Why did we miss it so badly? But the reality is, it's 12%, right? And if you take nothing away from this presentation, other than this next thing is as the complexity, uncertainty grows, your ability to forecast the future drops to zero, right? So how is it you can have a project and call it green when you really have no mathematical way in hell of being accurate, right? And again, don't beat yourselves up. Like, this is a forecast for a hurricane. They ran these models on supercomputers, and it's anywhere from it's going to hit Miami to Canada, right? 3 days out. So why should we expect any better results from our predictions? And this is what's crazy. We're like, we're in IT. We have degrees in computer science, and we took years of math. And it's like, but we can't figure out basic probability. I have a degree in Latin American studies. Like, why am I telling you guys this? I mean, this is crazy. But it was like, but everybody wants to believe in certainty. And we live in a world of uncertainty, which is, we need to move from pretty lies to difficult truth, which is we have hypotheses. Our plans, you need to plan, as Eisenhower said, planning is invaluable, plans are worthless. We need to accept that, and we need to embrace that we're in a world of hypothesis, we're running experiments, we don't know. Which is why, instead of calling projects green in the beginning, we should call them, particularly if we have fixed date, scope, we should call them red. And only as we hit milestones and reduce the risk, turn them to yellow and green, which is the exact opposite of what we do today. Or if your time, you're willing to be flexible, call it gray, because you just don't know, right? And that's the cultural shift that needs to happen, because how many of you guys start out your projects green when you really have no idea whether you're going to get them done on time? Anybody? That's right. Why do we do that? And then how much time gets spent arguing about, oh, is it yellow? Is it yellow? Can we turn it yellow? No, can't turn it yellow. Can't turn it. Okay. And then you get all the way to the very end. It's like, oh yeah, it's yellow, now it's red, right? It's how much time and suffering could be saved if we just flipped it? Just said, look, we don't know. As well as like saying it's red. And by the way, is those expectations are going to get out the door, you're setting them early. It's not going to happen. So now let's talk about impact. Okay, this is a chart. Can anybody guess what this is a chart of? Over here, you have it's $2 billion. Over there, it's $523 billion. You have 1,000 items. Anybody guess? Okay, it's the Fortune 1000. That's Walmart. It's literally 263 times bigger. It's 2 times bigger than the 5th largest company. It's 263 times bigger than the smallest Fortune 1000, 13,000 times bigger than the largest small business, and 11 million times bigger than the average small business, right? That's what your customer base looks like. And that's what I call hyper-Paretoism. Anybody familiar with that term? No, because I just made it up too. But it's a real phenomenon. And people talk about the 80-20 rule, but really the Pareto distribution, as your populations get larger, it actually turns out not to be 80-20. It's what you see in this. So I found this, and I thought this was really cool. What they did is they ran this model, and they basically had random people distributing money, and you either lost money or gained money. And you see what happens. And you just see this play out in society across everything. So this is why the world's richest control, like the 1%, control 30% of the world's wealth. This is what your customer base looks like. Right at the end is 50% have less than $500, and 1% have 30 to 50%. And that's what your customer base is going to look like. That's what this use cases, the scenarios, is what you're going to see is you're going to have a small percentage have an overwhelming impact. But then the other piece is, right, it correlates to complexity. Take Walmart, right? They're in 24 countries. They've got 48 brands. They've got 10,500 locations. Your complexity grows with your impact. But the problem is, you do your planning, right? You've got all your customers there. You see them. And you think you're almost done. You ignored these outside ones because there's not very many of them, but that's where all of your complexity and risk is, right? And you hit those, and everything blows up. Anybody got to the end of the project and discovered, like, oh, man, we didn't realize like how much extra work is going to be for Walmart and Target. And anybody ever experienced that? They're large customers. I seen the heads nodding. This last week, right? This isn't unique. This isn't unique to me. I mean, I've seen it at multiple other companies. This was not something at FedEx. And I'll give you the FedEx story. We'd migrated 7 million customers, and we only have 353 left to go. We should be done by November. And it's like, yeah, November, 3 years from now. This was September, but that's where all the risk and complexity was, because that's where all your customizations are. That's where your complexity is. That's where your scale. If my architect came back to me and said, hey, we can migrate everybody at Walmart and Amazon. Well, great. Do I fire them? I mean, it's only a few $1 billion worth of revenue. I mean, I can't shut down the old system until I get them over. But right, the system, she looked at averages, didn't look at the extremes, which is, again, where all of your risk and complexity and impact is. So now let's talk about augmentation versus replacement. And I don't think this is a subject we talk about enough. So this is a laptop, right? You give somebody a smartphone, you're augmenting the capabilities, right? You're not taking anything away from them. So it's great that the cost, you're adding additional cost, but you're adding additional benefit. The only downside is they may not use it, but they always have the existing thing. But now you take away the laptop and you're replacing, right? Now the risk goes up. It's much higher, right? You now need to have that, whatever it is, have everything that the old system had, because people are, they don't want 99% of it. They want 100% of it, particularly for those critical use cases. They don't have them very often. They may only need to do the taxes once a year, but it needs to be able to handle that, right? And so the risk profile is much higher when you're replacing, but people tend to think of apply the same models as they use for augmenting. Replacing is wildly different. The other piece is you have this concept called loss aversion. Who's heard of loss aversion? All right, I did not make up that term. So, and loss aversion basically says a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So it's funny because the research actually shows that. It's basically is whatever we have, we value twice as much as what we might get. So even if we don't use it very often, we still value it. So like how many of these have this is a cherry pitter. How many have random things in their house that they've only used once and are like, I should get it, but maybe I might use it, right? And this is what our systems are filled with. And our customers are like, yeah, but I might use it. Now that I have it, I can't get rid of it, right? This is reality. And we call it bloat, and we call it, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with human psychology, and most of our purchases are driven by what ifs and edge cases. We buy the SUV because our friends might, our kids' friends might come over. We have that extra bedroom because the relatives might come over. We don't get the electric vehicle because it won't drive 500 miles for that one time a year we go on vacation. This is how we make decisions, not based on averages. So now let's talk about the minimum viable replacement. Who's here is familiar with the minimum viable replacement? All right, I made that up. And really, it was basically because the classic MVP just didn't make any sense. So, right, MVP works, right? Kid has no shoes. You give him shoes, you give him a skateboard, you give him a bicycle, give him the Cybertruck. Those are all enhancements, right? We've all seen variations of this. But now they've got a pickup truck. Are they going to trade it for tennis shoes? Whoops. They're going to trade it for a tennis shoe, a bicycle? Hell no. Right? Oh, by the way, it's lifted. They have customized just for them. And it's driven by your largest customers. They have all the power. And unless you can get them out of that, you've got to support two systems, right? That's the challenge. Does the MVP work? No. Embrace the MVR. So, the minimum viable replacement is all the capabilities, work, and experiences required to migrate users from one technology system to another. And it's the exact opposite of MVP, but when I started, the consultants came in, MVP. We're going to do an MVP. We just do 80%, and that'll be good enough. And it was a complete failure. But the problem is like, who here's the MVP? We're going to launch an MVP to our customers, right? This is crazy. They don't want an MVP. They don't want the skateboard. They want their friggin' lifted pickup truck, right? And so, MVP is really about what's the bare minimum I need to get an initial slice of customers versus the MVR is what I need to handle my entire customer base, right? And you have that 80%, they look fairly similar, but then you have the rhinos, hippos, giraffes, elephants, and good luck getting to wear the pants that you got for the 80%, right? And the MVP really is fundamentally about, is there a market for my product? With an MVR, you already know there's a market, but it's can you get them to switch from the old version to the new version? It's really about switching. And MVP is, it's those early adopters. MVR, again, it's about everybody, from early adopters to laggards. And by the way, who are your largest customers? Are they your early adopters or are they your laggards, right? They're the Walmarts of the world. Your risk is all of your laggards, but yet our traditional model is ignore the laggards. They're losers, right? Anybody heard that? Laggards, losers, right? But at the end of the day, they're your largest customers. So the traditional model of product development is wrong. The laggards really, adoption is really about how much work and effort it's going to take, and they're laggards because it's going to take so much damn work for them to migrate.
It's the inertia problem.
Exactly. So, and not only that, they look different than everybody else, right? They live in the penthouse. They've got the 40-foot ceilings and the helipad and the Olympic pool. They don't look like anybody else. So you need to design and architect for the 1% while delivering for the 80% first, right? Because if you just design for the 80% and ignore the penthouse, when you get to the top, you're going to be like, oh, shoot, we can't handle that. Oh, 100 million transactions? Oh, I don't know. They need a 10,000 location, blah, 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 right? So you need to design and architect for the 1%. You may not be able to deliver for them first, but design and architect for them first while then working toward delivering the simpler stuff sooner. Or develop entirely different systems to meet the different needs, right? Standard designs for the 80%, custom solutions for 1%, and then shared services, shared infrastructure whenever possible. Let's see, how am I doing on time? Okay. And then, MVR success really, if you think about your system's grown over time, in the beginning you start off with a narrow slice of customers and it grew and grew and grew. And now you need to basically slice your project into these different slices. So you start off with your initial customer segment and yada, yada, yada. And then once you get to these largest, right, each one of those is a segment of their own because they control so much revenue, right? Like you think about UPS, has, 12 million customers, something ridiculous. Yet Amazon represents 12% of the revenue, right? They're $100 billion, $12 billion. They're a segment up to themselves. And then you also need to think about what's it going to take to migrate. So it's not just what does the product have, but how do we migrate their data? How do we do the training? How do we get their IT to actually do the work, et cetera? So it's much bigger. And then you're dealing with enterprise iceberg, so most of it you really don't have a clue what it's actually going to take. So now we've been talking about the MVR concepts. Now let's talk about creating an MVR roadmap. And so the first step is map your customers, right? You need to understand what do they look like. So, look at like your revenue per customer, transactions per customer. It could be any number of variables. And the more skew you see, the more your risk is concentrated. Then look at by customer segment. So you begin to see like what's my biggest look like, where is it and what you'll inevitably see is a small percentage drive the overwhelming impact. The next step is analyze your application usage by feature capability if you can. It looks simple here. It never is. So hopefully you've got some, you're able to do logging. You've got some sense of usage. You may not. That's life. But typically what you're going to see is, again, a small chunk of your application is used, by the majority of your users, the majority of the time. You have this, all these kind of things get used very rarely or just by a small segment of customers. And you go like, well, we got to just ignore those, right? Well, next is map those product features, capabilities by your customer base. Inevitably, what you'll almost see is that your King Kongs and Gorillas are the ones that use all of those one-off features as customers. And again, a lot of times you just won't even know, right? This looks clean, but in reality, it's like it's just a big blank. You just don't even know, right? And then, what are those things that you could deliver that don't take you away? Because you don't want to be in a situation where you're building all sorts of new stuff and you still have this old. But can you deliver something as an API? Can you deliver a mobile version where it is augmenting, where you don't need to have everything? You might be able to upsell, you roll it out to new geography, whatever. And then look at, your dependencies and difficulty. What does that look like? And hopefully, and again, there's no absolutes, you'll see as the first chunk is the most used chunk probably has the fewest dependencies and probably the easiest to implement because it's the stuff you built first. And so that, deliver first, but plan and architect for this big unknown first because that's where all of your risk and complexity is. Does that make any sense? All right. So I'm not full of BS? Well, I may be. Okay. And then just a few other tips, consolidate and automate wherever possible. You've got reports. If you can build a reporting engine, do self-service, but see what are those things that are similar. And sometimes it's really difficult because the subject matter experts only know their little slice. And so how do you take an abstract and figure out what are those things that you can build as services versus just individual standalones? And can you build things as self-service that don't require you to constantly building out yet more iterations? Another thing is, customer migration requirements, right? What are those challenges? So data migration, customer IT resources, right? Because oftentimes you're integrated when you're in the B2B, right? They've built their APIs, they've got to do stuff, right? Now you got to get on their roadmap. And then look at what are those potential solutions. So, and this part can take 2 to 10x longer than the actual development, right? At FedEx, we had some customers that were literally 10, 15 years behind our development cycle. They're like, works for us. We don't give, you should migrate off. I'm like, hey, take that. We don't care. It's like, you're going to shut us down? We generated $10 million a year for you. I'm like, oh, well, I guess not. Please? Right? So that you understand that the migration process can take many times longer than the actual development process. Again, that's why so that looking at what's those realistic timelines, and the more tightly integrated they are, the longer the timelines, right? The more work they have to do. Now let's talk about the watermelon detector. So, right, you'll be done in 9 months, right? Sure. No way in hell. It's not going to happen. But how do you deliver that message? So for me, I'd never done a modernization before. You're going to be done in 9 months. And by the way, integrate freight in there as well. I guess so. But I didn't, nobody wants to hear my gut. So with the watermelon detector, the whole idea is to risk delivering bad news. It's a tool I developed just with some questions and walked through it. But because it's really difficult to deliver bad news. Nobody wants to hear why this project isn't going to be delivered on time, right? There's this, everybody wants to look good. But also people don't know what are the common risks. If you haven't done it before, you don't know that, oh, well, we don't actually control the upstream or downstream dependencies. Like, this is a serious risk, right? It doesn't matter how good the plan looks. We don't control those. And then you're going to need to give an estimate, but at the end of the day you need to be able to say here's why it's wrong. Here are all the flaws in that. So it helps you with that. And so what I did is I just developed a worksheet that turns things red, yellow, or green, depending how you ask. So there's a few questions. And so it's some of the basics of oftentimes you're starting a modernization, you stand up a new team. Well, does the team have any experience working together? No. So how are you supposed to trust their estimates? they have an experience working with the technology, right? You're moving from one legacy technology to another. Do they have, you know, like if you're doing a merger and integration, do you have experts that understand both sides of the equation? So just all those different pieces from an execution perspective. And then from an adoption and value, because a lot of times people focus just on the can we get it done is defined, but the more important piece is will the dogs eat the dog food? Will it deliver the value? So, you know, is this an actual minimum viable replacement we're delivering, or is it an MVP, right? Because we got the, oh, just deliver the 80%. How many gets it? How many gets it? We'll just deliver the 80%. That should be good enough. Anybody ever heard that? So, right, that's an MVP. That's an MVR. That's not going to get the adoption you want. So have you done usability and value testing, right? You could have finished everything else, but if you haven't done that, you're at very high risk. I see somebody just beating their head. They go, oh my God, yeah, I'm having flashbacks.
We removed Hadoop, and then we found out how many customers were like, but we need Hadoop.
Exactly. So it's just, so anyways, a series of questions, about 50, 60 questions, a worksheet I put together. And the idea is just to make it easy for people to identify common risks and be able to point to something instead of themselves, say, well, I'd love to say it'd be done in 9 months, but at the end of the day is here's all these risks that we've identified, so now we can have an open and honest conversation early. Let's call this thing red if we're going to say that we're actually going to do it in 9 months, and now let's work backwards. The idea is, you know, you can identify, track, prioritize, you can assign ownership, you can begin to mitigate those early. And that idea is that as you go through your project, that you should turn things from red to yellow to green, as opposed to the traditional model, we're going to call everything green, and then we're eventually going to be yellow and red, right? So the next time comes and says, you'll be done in 9 months. I'd love to agree, but the watermelon detector says otherwise. So to summarize, embrace uncertainty. This is the hardest thing because companies want certainty. But at the end of the day is ask your sales VP if he can predict what sales will be in 2 years. Ask the CFO what the earnings per share will be 2 years from now. You know, just nobody else can, so why should IT and products expect, you know, be expected to deliver higher? Focus on risk reduction. It's not about the number of story points. Story points are like body counts in the Vietnam War. They're easy to quantify, but they have absolutely zero correlation with success, right? We killed 10,000 Vietnamese. Great. I mean, did we win the war? No. That's the wrong questions to ask. Understand augmentation versus replacement. They're wildly different problems you're trying to solve for. Adopt the minimum viable replacement. Anybody like the concept? Now you've heard it? Awesome. And then use the watermelon detector. And now we're done. So let's see, I got through it in 48 minutes. So reach out. I just landed a new gig 2 weeks ago, so I'm fully employed, but I'm happy to help folks, and I have some other consultants who can do workshops and help folks through this. People who led a few $100 million worth of modernizations. So if you are, you know, struggling with these or walking through, you know, happy to reach out and certainly happy to help. You know, and as well as reach out and happy to share some versions of the watermelon detector with you. But that's it. I'm done. Questions? All right.
Where can we get the watermelon detector?
Just email me, and I will send you a gift copy.
All right.
Any other questions?
Given all the, you know, the uncertainty that you've laid out here, the giant iceberg, the black hole and everything, do you have any tips with the inevitable timeline estimates that were asked that are impossible to deliver?
Well, that's why I say is at the end of the day, you're going to have to get something, but explaining the math. So being able to say, here's why this is going to be wrong, right? You're asking me to violate basic probability. And then being able to use something like the watermelon detector where you show all of the risks And just do, like, we've got 100 different features, 100, like, just do some basic math. Look, I've just multiplied, because the way you do probability is you just take that confidence that you have on each one, and she quickly shows you're going to get to 0. You're going to get to the billionth percentile very quickly. And by the way, anytime you multiply something times 0, it goes to 0. So there's no easy way to do it, and this is why you bring in outside consultants to deliver that message for you.
I do feel like anytime you're asked to do a timeline, you can predict the next hour way more easily than you can predict the next week, the next year, the next.
Just like the
5
weather.
years. So saying, well, the next step we can probably do, we can have more information for you by X amount of time. That you can do with relatively high confidence, and just say, like, with our current information, maybe this much time. We'll have an update for you whenever.
Yeah, but so just.
It won't always get accepted, but you can try it.
So when we looked back at FedEx, what we saw was, on average, these big projects were, I think it was 3x bigger. The timelines were typically 3x larger than whatever we had originally estimated. That's so. The other piece is, you may want to ask, how much time did it take for us to build whatever it is we had? Okay, let's just assume it's going to take half as long. We've been working on it 10 years, 5 years, unless we can literally just cut and replace. But then, how are we handling all of these edge cases, right? Other questions?
So along the same line, I see the problem, like as a developer who is the last line of estimation. So we'll ask the developer how much time you need, because the BA doesn't want to guess, so they want developer to guess, and the developer do not have anywhere else to turn to guess. So that's where I think all the flaw comes in. BA doesn't want to guess, supervisor doesn't want to guess, chief doesn't want to guess, CIO doesn't want to guess, and the guess is coming from developer.
Well, and the problem is, it's like, it's okay to guess, but let's just be honest, it's a guess. Hey, is it going to rain next Friday? Sure, I think so. I mean, it's a guess, but is it worth anything? I mean, that's the big change we need to embrace, is that we can't accept that we cannot predict the future. It is impossible. It is mathematically impossible. And that just goes against the way we've all been trained, right? You get rewarded for those fancy project management charts that show, we'll be done by this date. And then, but the CEO said we'll be done by that. The CEO can violate math, right? And it's just really, everybody wants uncertainty, but it is an uncertain world. That is the problem. And so the other thing is, just think about, right, driving to Cleveland, typically going to take you 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Let's say you go 100 miles an hour, you get there in an hour and a half. Low probability, but guess what? What's the longest it could take you to go to Cleveland? You could have a snowstorm, COVID could hit, your car could break down, right? You can go infinitely to the right, and that's just the way projects go. But there's only so much you can do to bring them in, unless you can literally just replace things wholesale, which is very rare.
And even a plug-and-play replacement doesn't guarantee it's going to go any smoother.
No, because you really don't know, is it truly plug and play? I mean, that's why, these SAP, it's like, here's SAP, and then it's going to take you 10 years to implement it, to customize it, right? All right, other questions, comments, bad jokes? Any bad jokes?
Check the Discord.
Check the Discord, all right. Can somebody check the Discord? Somebody? I think somebody's supposed to be doing that. Let's see. Sure.
So, flipping around to the other perspective, if you're a management high up and you're hearing from IT, how do you make decisions? If it's so uncertain, how do you decide what to invest in and what to play your best?
Life is about making bets. So that's right. You're betting this market's going to grow. This product is going to do X. So it's about using a mix of intuition and data and trying to predict in an uncertain world. Also, from if you're in the other side of the, is to be able to say, as IT, are you actually being honest with me? Right? It goes. So I was talking to the CEO, and he was like, they kept telling me you're green. It didn't look green to me. And so it's honesty goes both ways. And this is, I think we've been stuck in this horrible relationship where we lie to senior managers expect us to lie, and everybody's kind of in this. This is what we've been trained to do, and we're not sure how to get out of it. And that's just hard.
There's also always hedging your bets, or like, don't lock yourself into a contract or something on an uncertainty.
Yeah, there's.
Say like, you could have your marketing saying like, we are planning a launch at this time. There's a difference between we're planning a launch and we're guaranteeing we will have this ready for you to use.
Yeah, so
One
it's
gets you in more trouble if you can't meet it.
it's hedging your bets. It's about just managing expectations. That's the hardest part, right? Other questions, comments, or are you guys?
Question on the Discord server is modernization ever a past tense?
That's a good rhetorical question. So the question was, is modernization ever a past tense? It really, the answer is, I think, yes and no. If you think about modernizations being a replacement, then yes, you can replace something. But at the end of the day, right, we take the broader look at, we're just modernizing, we're continuing to enhance and improve, then, modernization, that perspective is never done. I mean, software is never done. There's a saying in Hungarian, which is a miracle lasts 72 hours. Basically is, what's 10 years ago, right, if you imagine, you could just be on your cell phone and doing FaceTime video, people go, wow, that's amazing. Now we're like, dang, the reception sucks. I can't get my video from my car and talk to somebody around the world. So their expectations always go up. All right. Any other questions? Well, thanks. I really appreciate it. And let's give another round of applause for all the volunteers. Thank you.